You're listening to the Voice of Reason. I'm Dr. Len Sabuto here with Francesco Garapoli. Hi, Francesco. How you
Hey,
feeling today?
I'm feeling great, Len. We got a good topic today to talk about.
You know, it's one that's dear to my heart because I went to medical school and you almost did. You had been accepted, but you chose not to. Maybe that was a wise decision. But there are a lot of things about how we treat people that make a big difference. We're not treating a set of symptoms with a bag of tools. We're going beyond information exchange and building community.
Yeah.
We're interested in how people are. We do what's called humanistic medicine. And there's a place for that because things have changed in the medical world in the last 40 years in a dramatic way. When I first started out in medicine, a lot of this person-centered approach to things where we care about how people feel and we look at it from their point of view to see how it's affecting how they're doing with their illness, whether it be Parkinson's disease or Alzheimer's or COVID-19, which is the rage today.
Mm.
Uh, it's important and it gets neglected. We start talking about the role of spirit and healing, and the scientists of the world don't want to hear about that because they don't have the metrics to measure this. And so they kind of throw it out, give it back to the church. And of course, the church may come to you when you're on your deathbed in the hospital and do some things that are important. But I think this is a responsibility of the medical profession too. And I think doctors are that way. You know, they go to church on Sunday, they go back to work on Monday, and they're all back to science again.
And here in this COVID-19 era, we've seen this in the brightest light right now of frustration about where is the human in this? Not only are we putting on masks that
Hmm.
separate us from each other, but people are nervous now about this whole idea of social distancing because
Yeah.
I keep calling physical distancing, but now I'm
Yeah.
starting to understand it's designed to be socially distanced, which is even more scary. That's
Yeah, it is.
pushing people away. So now people are just jumping on the science behind it. When will this be over? What are the facts? What are the science? And we forgot about ourselves as humans.
Hmm. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we have to go back to what's the point of being a human? I mean, we're human beings with a spiritual path that we follow.
Mhm.
And we tend to forget about that. I think what we should be doing is teaching kids just from the time they're born, not just when they get to school, about what matters in life. They should be thinking about what their epitaph is going to say when they're young,
Yeah.
because we should be aiming for that. That should be the goal of what we do. And that should definitely be the goal of our doctors who are trying to work with people who are terrified because their health isn't well. And what they want is they want to get well enough to get back on their feet and back to work so they can make a living, not like what's happening today where people are unemployed, they've lost their health insurance, they're about to lose their homes, and it's just a disaster.
Yeah, and we're talking about holistic medicine. And when we do that, just
Yeah,
to be clear, this means the traditional body, mind, and spirit.
yeah,
And so when you keep the body, mind, and spirit components active in the healing process, yes, you look at the science, you look at the body, but we
sure.
have to look at the mind and the attitude. And right now in the COVID-19 era, we are seeing what's happening to people's minds through this isolation
It's been
and their
fragmented.
spirits. It's been fragmented, and this affects our health. So that three-legged stool, body, mind,
Mm.
spirit, is very critical. And you have to look as an individual how you're being affected on each of those levels.
Well, a hospital is a lonely place. And now that COVID-19 is here, you can't even have visitors.
Yeah.
So what you got is a team of people that come to you with a mask on. You don't even see their face, as you were saying. And what you got is eyes peering at you and eyes peering back at them.
Mhm.
And where's the real heartfelt connection? Where's the attitude, I'm here to help you because I care about you. And I'm going to do everything in my power to give you everything that's possible to help you, not just what's given by the mainstream as the only way to do it. I'm going to be there for you. Talk to me.
Yeah, but that's the old-fashioned doctor. When my doctor came back in the late 50s and early 60s, came to our family, he
Hmm.
came in with his black bag. He
Yeah.
knew everything about the family. He usually had some gift for my mom, some piece of meat or something, something from his hunts. He liked to pheasant
Yeah.
hunt, for instance. So there was a personal connection. He charged $1 per kid.
Yeah.
Now we had a big family. We had 7 kids at the time, so that was $7 per treatment.
Well, that's a
But
lot of money then. Yeah.
yeah, but he knew each kid, and he had the tongue depressor, and he had his black bag, and this was a home visit, and he spent an hour, and he had a cup of coffee, and then he left.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of medicine I grew up with, and we're starting to watch now a different kind of healthcare in a time when that body, mind, and spirit is more critical than ever.
Well, there's a big difference between what we had then and now what I would call industrialized medicine. You know,
Right.
doctors have a boss now. They work for a big company, and they need to do what that company tells them to do, and they have to see a certain number of patients, or they're just gone. They're not going
Sure.
to. That's not going to happen. And things changed actually, Francesco, back in World War II. At that time, it was really it was the doctor coming to the house with his black bag,
Right.
uh, you giving him a chicken if you didn't have any money, because that's, and we still do that. At least I do that still in my practice today.
Mm.
And we have to remember that these are, at that time, that was wonderful. But when World War II came along, there was a wage freeze.
Mm.
And so corporations couldn't increase the amount of money they were paying people for their services. So they start giving them benefits, and health benefits is what happened. And it changed the way the doctor functioned. It changed the way the whole healthcare system functioned, because now we're looking at people expecting to be able to use their benefits. So they want to go to the doctor every time some little thing goes wrong.
Mm.
And I've got to tell you, the last 3 weeks, my practice, I've had to shut down.
Really.
People don't want to come out and travel because they just think it's unsafe, and there's a point to that. And the whole thing is that we can't be expecting to do everything or just go to the doctor for every little thing. People are
Yeah.
still going to be fine. In fact, I hate to say this, but there have been 50 or 60 times when doctors have gone on strike, and the death rates in the hospital don't go down or don't go up. They don't go up.
Isn't that
It's
funny?
like, maybe we're using this system too much. We've monetized it and politicized it so much that it's become an economic system. It's not so much about what I can do for you. It's what you can do for me. It's the reverse of what President Kennedy said. He said,
Right.
what he said, all this, it boiled down
Sure.
to this.
But Len, if you're paying so much money for insurance every
Yeah.
month, right? Just like you said, there's a sense, well, I've got to get something for this. And it puts you in a mindset of, I better be sick so my insurance is worth something.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it, my parents, my father's 90, my mom's almost 90, they pay at that age an unconscionable amount of money for insurance.
I know, it's a joke.
And right now they're so scared. My dad was sick the other day, and he's afraid to go to the doctors
Yeah,
for the
sure.
same thing like you said. So
Yeah.
so we have a situation now that it's very conflictual, and people are afraid to go out because of the COVID-19 situation. But at the same time, they want to be treated, but people have forgotten the one thing, and this is a very important part of the holistic medicine idea, is the mind and spirit part.
Oh,
What
yeah.
can you do as a person to close your eyes, sit down, see yourself healthy, kick in your own body's natural healing?
Yeah.
People have forgotten about that.
Well, it's the most powerful healer. It's not the doctor that does the healing. Albert Schweitzer talked about this. The doctor stands around while the body does the healing and does a few things to try and support the process. And if you can just do that without overdoing it, about 1 million people die every year in this country. This is well documented in a
Mhm.
in a movie and a book that was made by Gary Null. It's called
Mhm.
Death by Medicine. 1 million people a year die because of things that go wrong in the medical profession. Some of it's just the expected side effects of drugs. There are about 200,000 people a year that die from the expected side effects of drugs just in hospitals.
Wow.
And then all the other things that are done that are mistakes. It's not something we want to just rely too much on, because if we do, then we're going to be exposed to the drugs that doctors learn to do. I mean, let's face it, when you're a doctor of medicine, it's called a doctor of medicine, but it's not the spirit of medicine so much as it is the drugs and surgeries and technologies. And I don't think that's the best way. Lifestyle is the most powerful medicine we have. So we should be paying attention to the style in which we live our life. That's the gold here. If we did that, we wouldn't be getting sick like this. If we were
Exactly.
more of a community and we're stuck together and we had the support of our village, think of what a difference that would make. And we had a doctor who was part of that village rather than working for some conglomerate that's all based on money rather than on service. The whole country is fundamentally flawed. Whether we've
Yeah.
talked about this before, where there's business, medicine, law, science, sport, every other aspect of our culture is competitive and adversarial, and it's about what you can get for you. It's all about I, me, my, and mine. It's not about what you can share and give a love and build community with. That's where the real stuff is, and that's what holistic medicine should be about. It should be person-centered as a huge part of that.
Yeah, and putting the responsibility back on the person. That's the whole idea of the mind and the spirit part. And let's look back at the COVID-19 situation and look at
Yeah.
Sweden.
Oh,
People
yeah.
people knocked Sweden. Look what they've done. They made such a terrible mistake. But can I read you some facts? I just looked,
Yeah.
there's updates, daily updates. So
This is great stuff.
what
Yeah.
I'm going to read you now, people might not want to understand it. I compared um, New York City with its 10 million people with
Mhm.
Sweden with its 10 million people. Would you say that would be a fair?
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's look at Sweden's 10 million people and the number of deaths associated to COVID. 2,194.
Wow.
Okay. Let's look at New York City, not New York State, New York City.
Yeah.
It's 10 million people, 12,000 deaths.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, people are saying that something's wrong with Sweden. They took the wrong approach, but
It's just
I'm
different.
I'm seeing 1/6 the amount of deaths in Sweden compared to New York City, which has complete lockdown, shutdown, isolation.
Yeah.
Now, tell me, these are numbers. Am I missing something here?
No, but a lot of people are missing something. I mean, Sweden wants to do adult, uh, wants us to be adults. We want to be thoughtful. We want to practice a golden rule. If you're sick, for God's sakes, go home and go to bed. Don't go over to your in-laws' place and spread the virus, because they're the ones that are going to be the most likely to die from it. And it's okay for young people to get this cold that's running around. It's obviously a lot more serious in people who have underlying conditions
Sure.
or are elderly, but we should be taking care of ourselves that way to be able to build herd immunity. And so we should be sending the kids back to school until we have about 50% of the population that has antibodies against this illness. It's gonna hang out there. So if we're all isolated and nobody's getting sick like they would ordinarily, what do you think is going to happen when you go back to where you were?
Exactly. So,
So
here's real numbers in Sweden and New York. And then have you seen Kurt Witowski? He's a PhD. He was with the Rockefeller University Hospital. He's an epidemiologist.
yeah, I saw it.
Right? So he's not a virologist. He said
Yeah,
there's so many doctors and virologists out there talking about this situation. And a virologist can really look at a virus and tell you everything about its protein structure and the
yeah,
protein spikes.
yeah,
But
yeah.
an epidemiologist will tell you about the statistician's view, the mathematician's view of
Yeah,
cycles and what herd immunity is.
that's
This
right.
guy is brave for coming out and saying, send kids back to school,
Yeah,
get back to work.
yeah,
Yes, keep the elderly in isolation and people who are at risk and have previous conditions, but build up the health of the body, of the antibody and the human body. And guess what? This thing would be over.
yeah. Well, that's right. There are so many ways you could look at this that I don't want to go into right now, because it just makes my blood boil to think if
Go
we
ahead.
didn't handle this in a way that was smart. There's so many conflicts of interest and so many pieces that
That's
don't
the
fit in the puzzle like they should, that
that's the
it
point.
makes you almost paranoid about things. And then when we do get a little paranoid, or we just get realistic and have a reasonable approach to looking at what's happened, then it starts to make sense. The puzzle does fit together, and it's kind of an ugly scenario to see what's happening. And that's what we've been talking about this week.
Yeah,
And that's what we're going to talk about again tomorrow. So
yeah.
tune in tomorrow for the Voice of Reason, and we'll clue you in on that.
Thanks, Len.
You bet.